what it really is mindfulness for you.
Well, in general, mindfulness can be thought of in terms of being present, being totally in the moment. Um, but mindfulness for me, what it means, especially when it comes to entrepreneurship, is really having that sense of self awareness where you understand what your intentions are, what your purpose is behind the work that you're doing. And I think that a lot of times mindfulness kind of gets a bad rap, especially these days with social media. You know, people think it's too woo woo. And when it comes to entrepreneurship, people think that no, it's good to be multitasking. It's good to be like, this is our way to be super productive. But mindfulness reminds us that it's really, in order for us to be completely efficient and productive, it's really about doing one thing at a time.
Mm,
So, yes, it's about being present and paying attention to our senses and being intentional and all those things. But if you want to think of it in very simple terms, it's really just about doing one thing at a time. And when you're able
mm,
to do that, then you're able to have that self awareness. You're able to tune into those inner thoughts.
yeah.
I don't know, does that answer your
That's
question?
very no. This is great. Thank you so much for getting a little more into details of what mindfulness really is, and it's just paying attention to the present moment. We focus so much on doing, like you say, there's the multitasking, the listening to the podcast while you're cooking, just to get everything right. As we continue to get more productive during the day, we just trying to accomplish more for many reasons. And I feel that sometimes we forget about to if you stop for a moment and even take a deep breath, or even just be aware of what you're doing in that particular moment. To me, that's mindfulness, just like Hughes mentioned. Just be in the moment. And the way I've been practicing it is before I used to cook and I used to listen to the podcasts just because I want to get more stuff done. But now I stopped listening to anything, even watching or doing anything else besides cooking. And I start becoming aware of the way I think and what my thoughts are. But sometimes I start becoming aware, like the smell. Like it
Hmm.
really, like, oh, this smells good. Like if I'm cooking, oh, this smells good. And I start testing it and I start really enjoying the moment without having any worry. Yes, I have something else to do, but I just focus more in the moment. You mentioned something key for me too, and just having the intention and having purpose about it. What would you say for people that are, like you mentioned, is just like, oh, we hear so many things, but what would you say is key, at least when people is trying to get into mindfulness, they start becoming more mindful on certain things or any aspect in their lives? What would be some tips that you can share to them?
So in mindfulness, we have what are called formal practices, and then we have informal practices. When it comes to formal practices, one of the most, the common ones that we hear about are meditation, yoga. But when it comes to informal practices, it's how can you incorporate mindfulness in your day-to-day life? So like when you're
Mm,
explaining the cooking process, right? So the easiest way to think of this is tuning into your five different senses, right? So what am I smelling? What am I feeling? What is my hearing? Right? How
yeah.
does the food sound while I'm cooking it? What am I tasting?
Mm,
Especially being a good cook, you got to taste everything, right?
true.
So we can incorporate mindfulness on a day-to-day basis that way by tuning into our different senses. And when it comes to the formal practices, it's not how you feel when you're doing the formal practice. So it's really
Mm,
not about how you feel when you're meditating or how you feel when you're practicing yoga. It's how are you feeling throughout the rest of your day. That's how you gauge whether the practice is helpful for you or not. So a great place to start is really just, I think, every couple of hours, just taking even a few seconds to do some deep breathing, or taking a few seconds to just like look out your window and notice, what do I see? What do I hear? What I saw? Go through those five different senses. That's a great place for people to start as an introduction to
Yeah.
mindfulness.
Yeah. This is this is very informational for me.
Hmm.
The reason why is because you put them in two ways. This is the formal or the other that I never heard of it that way. To me, is like, this is really interesting. So if I'm paying attention, the formal way is like meditation, the regular, the basic, like we all practice, right? The yoga, exercise. It could be meditation, which for me has become something part of my life and is very powerful. I strongly recommend it. But however, you
Hmm.
mentioned the other things. What it stands to me is just the way you figure it out if it's working for you.
Hmm.
It's like you not just focus on doing, like, for example, myself, when I started introducing meditation, I just focus on that. But I noticed what kind of effect had throughout my entire day and sometimes in weeks. And the longer I've been doing it, I can see why it's being powerful for me
Hmm.
and how it has helped me become more aware and more centered in certain areas of my life. But you start like kind of ranging between the days. What would be, yeah, this is really cool. What would be something that you feel people is missing when it comes down to start practicing mindfulness?
I think that people make out mindfulness, especially if they're new to it, to be this big thing where only a certain subset of people can practice it. Like you have to be living out in the forest or living on a mountaintop, or you have to
Yeah.
have a very basic, simple life in order to be able to practice it. And nothing could be further from the truth. Actually, when we do have very busy, active lives, that is when we need mindfulness the most, really, in order to stay sane. So like you were saying, you look at, when you started meditating, you started looking at how is it benefiting you in your life. For each individual person, the experience is going to be different. So, for example, when I first started meditating, I noticed that I was procrastinating less. And nobody had told me, oh, if you meditate, you're going to procrastinate less, right? For
Mhm.
others, for clients, people that I've taught meditation to, most common response I get is that they're sleeping better. So, for each person, their experience is going to be different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is really this is really powerful because we often, yeah, sometimes we trying to add more things to our schedule and we want to try it, but we don't even know what we're trying to get out of it. We trying it because we seen results in other people
Hmm.
and we expecting those results. And what you're telling us is like, pay attention what kind of results it's giving you. Like you put example, like when I start trying meditation, I start procrastination. I start paying just being more active and just being more aware of certain things that sometimes I'll do it later, and that takes apart for me the part of multitasking. I I think sometimes that word of multitasking, I like to call it dropping tasking for myself. Because in reality, you're just like not doing so many things at once. You're just trying to feel productive, and a lot of times just gets my like when I start when I start doing more, being more productive, I kind of start paying attention, like how many things I start doing at once, and sometimes there will be like three or four, and I'm like, no wonder my energy gets lower.
Hmm.
That's another thing that I notice when it comes down to mindfulness. That my level of energy, what type of duties of things that I've been doing throughout the day, start decreasing my energy. At the same time, I notice what type of things elevate my energy. Would you say that's something that mindfulness can really help and support people's lifestyle nowadays?
100%. I mean, you can't even be tuned into whether something is draining you or not if you're not being mindful, right? That's why
Yeah.
so many people burn out, because they don't
Mm,
have that sense of self-awareness, and they just keep pushing and pushing and pushing themselves until it manifests itself physically, and then they realize something is up. So definitely having that sense of awareness, is this draining me or is this giving me energy, is a great indicator of whether, the mindfulness is working for you. But again, I think that people blow it up to be this big thing, and it really doesn't have to be. And it's something that you don't need anything to start. You can just do it right now. And I
yeah.
think that when we get hung up on, oh no, I got to go like learn how to meditate, or I got to go take a yoga class, when we get hung up on that, then we do end up procrastinating on it and pushing it
Mm,
off. Yeah.
yeah. That is really key. Start with what you have at the moment. That's something that I use too with my clients when it comes down to personal training. They ask me, like, do I have to get the weights? Do I have to get the bands? Do I have to get? I'm like,
Yeah.
no, we're going to start with whatever you have. You have a sofa, you have a chair. We're going to use that. Eventually, we're going to order a few things. This is a list that we're going to be working with. However, we're going to start tomorrow. We're not going to, probably you will get a few things, but you won't be able to get everything. But whatever you get, it's fine. If you don't have anything, we will do all body way. And for me, that's really, this is really, really awesome because I can resonate with so many things. Now, you obviously been working in mindfulness so much, and you have experienced many life transitions, just like
Hmm.
me, right? I experienced several life transitions. Sometimes I put myself into those situations. That I don't recommend that, but sometimes the universe, God, life throws balls at you. What would you suggest to people when things don't go their way and they know they had to start taking action because life is getting caught up to them? What would be a great tips that you can suggest to them to start paying attention in order for them to help them navigate? Because a lot of times we're trying to overcome them. And me, I like to say, like, to help them navigate those life experiences and whatever the universe is throwing at them.
Yeah, transitions are actually one of the reasons why I got into coaching and why I got
Mm,
into mindful life coaching. Back when I was only teaching meditation, I was a meditation teacher. I noticed this trend where people would come to me to learn how to meditate because they were going through some sort of transition in life, which was making them feel stressed. And that was one
mm,
of the reasons why I got into coaching. I was like, no, I actually would like to be able to help them in a deeper way to get through this transition so that they're not just going through the transition, but they're actually growing through it. Where mindfulness comes into play is it's really about having that sense of self awareness, again, coming back to the present moment and being able to learn whatever those little life lessons are along the way. So many times we get caught up on like what is the end goal or what is the end project, and that can create stress too, right? Because we're not there yet, it's in the future.
yeah,
Or we get caught up on, oh, what are all the mistakes that we made in the past, and dwelling in the past and maybe even ruminating over that can create stress. But
yeah,
really, by bringing yourself back to the present moment and reminding yourself as you're going through this transition, what is happening for me right now? What is a lesson I'm meant to learn right now? And also bringing in gratitude and appreciation, because through any transition, any challenge, any change in life, you may not be able to see the gratitude at that moment, but later on you can recognize that maybe there was a silver lining. So I feel like coming back to the present moment, bringing in gratitude, and really just understanding that you don't need to just go through this transition, you can literally grow through it. I think that that's what's important.
yeah. That is very powerful. Thank you for this is blowing my mind. I love the fact that you say grow through it.
Hmm.
Because, like I mentioned, like how help them navigate, but you took it to a different level, like grow to it, like not just navigate, but how can you grow with it? instead of sometimes pushing it down, or like, oh, I don't want to deal with that, which is totally fine. It can happen depending on
Hmm.
what type of situation, what life transition everybody's experiencing at the moment. But you're like, how about we just put it in our hands, and what can we do with this? How can we grow from it? And I think that that's a very powerful question to ask ourselves. How can we grow with it? Of not just learn, but how can we grow with it? Thank you so much, Nisha. This is really amazing. You obviously are an entrepreneur for quite some time, and not just from going right now the example you just mentioned, just going from just a meditation, going into the coaching. Like, how can I support them? You have another business before that. And for me, entrepreneurship it's personal growth. But for you, what does it mean entrepreneurship?
You know, I'll give a little bit of my background for context. So prior to being a meditation teacher and a life coach, I was a restaurateur, and I had a restaurant for 10 years in Washington, D.C. It was a chocolate-based restaurant, and not only was it a restaurant, but we also we made everything in-house. So we also had a chocolate business. We retailed, and we had chocolate boutiques, and we also wholesaled our chocolates to all over the country, and most of the major hotels in DC. And back then, when I entered entrepreneurship, I really was not mindful at all. I really had no clue what mindfulness was. I didn't know what intention was. I didn't know what purpose was. All I knew was that I had passion, and I had a passion for chocolate. And my chocolate passion was so big, I knew that I wanted to share it with the world. And I wanted to share it with the world in a way that was new and innovative and exciting. And so, in a way, I was not only serving other people, but I was also serving myself. That was my intro to entrepreneurship. So, I do believe, however you define the word passion, it usually starts with something that you almost feel called to do, that certain calling,
Yeah,
whether you consider yourself intuitive or logical or whatever. It's sort of this need that you have to serve others, whether it's a product or a service. And then along the way, entrepreneurship really just becomes part of you. It's
yeah,
not this separate thing. It's really about embodying it wholly so that it does become part of you. I used to call the restaurant my third child. I have two kids, and I used to say that that's my third baby. I mean, that's how I viewed entrepreneurship, at
yeah.
least.
This is a really this is very powerful way to view entrepreneurship. The way you put it is like my third child,
Hmm.
and to me, there's lots of moms that feel the need that's deciding between kids. Should I pursue my career as an entrepreneur? You mentioned another key theme for me that is like that I feel called for it. There's something that is inside of me that is like I need to share this with the world. Yet there's some pressure. You as a mom, what tips do you have for these people or these moms that are going through challenging moments, feeling heavy, undecided, and with so much pressure deciding should I go? Do I have to really pick and choose one or the other? What would you say to them?
I can only speak from my experience, right? Obviously. Everybody's situation is different. So I just want to kind of preface with that. But for me, when I first opened my restaurant, my kids were young. So my kids are now 28 and 25 years old. So when I opened my restaurant, they were 8 and 11 years old. They were
Wow.
young. They were young
Mhm.
kids. And here I was, and I had never had a business before. I was a stay-at-home mom for a while. Prior to that, I was a biomedical engineer, totally unrelated to what I
Wow.
was doing. Um, and my kids were young. And for me, it came down to what is the example that I want to set for my kids? You know, here I have this calling, this passion, this strong sense of duty to do this, you know, and by duty, I mean like something up there, a higher power. Even though at that time I wouldn't consider myself spiritual, I just had this feeling inside me that this was something I needed to do. And this was the example that I wanted to set for my kids. That later on in life, when they're older, when they're adults, when they have that spark in them, that they should take action, you know, and they should do it in such a way that that really elevates whatever, you know, whatever their passion is or whatever their spark is.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, my advice for moms really that are trying to decide, it is about asking, you know, it's not, I think some of the best parenting advice I ever got was be the adult you want your kids to grow up to be, to just model that
Oh,
behavior for them. It's not about telling them what to do. It's not about giving them the advice because usually it's in one ear and out the other. But specifically, you know, it
yeah.
depends on the age of the child. But even as adults, a lot of times it's in one ear and out the other. And it's really about you demonstrating to them what you
Yeah.
think, what are the values, what are the things that you want them to imbibe.
Yeah. This is beautiful. Thank you for sharing a little bit more about your story, those life lessons that you have experienced over the years. I want to go back to gratitude because it's clear to me that you not just mention it, but you've been practicing it for quite some time. But this is not coming just for now. I love the way when you start telling your story, I don't know if you noticed, but I can tell, and I notice, and everybody will notice, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to point it out because everybody needs to pay attention to this. When you start speaking about your story, there's a sense of peace, and that to me is very powerful because oftentimes when we tell our story, there's certain things, certain emotions that comes with it. I would like to know what have you done in order for you to get where you are at the moment with that particular part of obviously you practice gratitude, but it has to be more than that. We all
Oh,
know that. It has to be way more than that. We all know that. And
okay.
and
How much time do you have, Omar?
don't we have all the time that you want to take. The reason why I want to go there because I feel this is a message that people needs to hear because we talking about your kids. You mentioned they 25 and 28, and when you started was 8 and 11, and it's a whole entire journey. And people feel mindfulness. They want to start search one thing and they want to change their whole entire life. Like they want to change, break the cycle, like in just 1 month. And we hear talking about it's been a whole entire 10, 15 years. However, the way you express and tell your story, it is so beautiful. And I just want to acknowledge you for that because to me, listening to it and paying attention, I'm like, wow, and even myself, I can sense energy. You know that I've been telling you that all of you that, and your energy is like very, it's mellow. The way you're expressing yourself is like so mellow, and it's like, wow, that is super. To me, this is awesome, and I just want to thank you because I can sense the energy and just filling me up. So thank you so much.
Thank you for saying that. That really touches my heart, Omar. It means a lot. And it touches my heart because, you know, most of the time, especially on social media and stuff, we see everybody's highlight reel. We see all the good things, right? And even in conveying my story, I'm conveying to you the positive aspects of it. But really, life is full of ups and downs. I've been
Yeah,
through severe trauma in my life. I've been through, you know, difficult times. Um, and it's taken a lot of work. I wasn't feeling like this, you know, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. even yesterday. It's like each day, right? And this is where mindfulness really comes into play. It's about developing, being able to develop that patience that
Mhm.
it takes. And that's not to say that every day is going to feel like, oh, I can do this. There are all kinds of ups and downs,
Yeah.
but it's never giving up. For me, it's faith. It's having that faith that no, I can get through this and I can grow. Again, goes back to growing. But gratitude has been huge for me. So I think I had, like I mentioned, I had the restaurant in DC for 10 years.
Mm.
And during that time period, I was very caught up in the day to day stuff, very much like just go, 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 go. A very different personality type, I think. It was really in the closing of the restaurant, those last couple of weeks when we first announced it, that I was able to say, okay, this can be a difficult time because I've battled severe clinical depression in the past, or this can be a time that I can really reframe and turn around and start focusing on gratitude. Start actually listening to all the stories from the people that are coming in about how my restaurant had impacted them in a good way, you know?
Yeah.
And it was really through gratitude that I was able to reframe that whole experience, that whole situation, where I was almost as satisfied and joyful and fulfilled as I was when I closed the restaurant as when I was when I opened the restaurant. You know, that to me is the power of gratitude. The power of gratitude is not when the sun is shining and when everything is going great. The power of gratitude is when you know shit hits the fan. When I'm sorry, I
Yeah.
swear,
That's fine.
when things, you know, the power of gratitude is when things are going crazy in life and they're not going your way. So, yeah,
Yeah.
gratitude plays a big part.
Yeah. This is so beautiful because it is it is fascinating to me to hear all of this and this is the way my brain starts processing information that you're sharing with me, and I'm gonna take it in a different direction because that's how sometimes it goes.
Mhm.
You you mentioned that you were called to do with open up the restaurant and sharing your passion for chocolate to the world. Yet you find yourself in the way you describe how those 10 years by having your restaurant life got you surprised. It's not as just like want to share it. That passion even was so strong, it put you into situations that wasn't you weren't expecting, I'm pretty sure.
Mhm.
However, somehow you start going back to appreciating everything and start working. To me, that's what I call detachment. Detachment is something that you're so passionate about it, but you okay to let it go and just let it just close that chapter and let me move on. And to me, another key element that I often share with the people I work with, and I say, never lose your essence within the process.
Mhm.
Because the minute you lose your essence within the process, that's when everything gets super challenged. And sometimes you will have to do certain actions and you that it needs to happen in order for you to have that closure. How that closure of the restaurant has impacted your life to where you are now, because I like I mentioned the way you mentioned it, you it's like even when you mentioned the opening of the restaurant and the closure of the restaurant is like this high, but then it goes here, but now you're over here and just like wow, this like this high ends and everything is just like it's just here. There's not so high, there's not so low, and everything is just like okay, let me move this boat with all the waves that the river we're in through us.
Yeah. You know how they say when one door closes, another one opens, right?
Yeah,
Um, yeah, for me, I think at that junction in my life when the restaurant closed, another one opened. But I'll kind of take it a step further. You have to have use mindfulness and have a sense of self-awareness in order to even see the next door, you know? And so for me, it was through embodying gratitude and mindfulness and meditation during that difficult period in time that it created another spark. And it was like, wow, this is a really powerful tool, not just the gratitude, but also the meditation, because that had gotten me through not just the closing a restaurant, but it had also gotten me through a difficult divorce, a difficult marriage. Gratitude, meditation, mindfulness, these are tools. Once again, I want to share with the world. I want to share with others, and how
Yeah.
can I do that? And so it was in closing the restaurant that I decided. People asked me, well, what are you going to do next? Are you going to open up another restaurant? And I was like, no, you know what? I have this other passion that I want to share, and that's meditation. And so I then started the whole process, took a year, studied positive psychology, got my meditation teacher certification, and started teaching meditation. And then we all know the pandemic story where everything shuts down, right? And you and I, we were in the same situation. What do we do? And that's when we both, joined the Jay Shetty School and started coaching. Yeah.
Yeah. This is beautiful, Nisha. Thank you for sharing a little bit more details about your life, because I feel that sometimes, like you mentioned, people see us and they think like, oh, everything has been so beautiful, and how do we get there? By life experiences. You mentioned the closure of your restaurant, the experience with your marriage, that the life itself keeps showing up to you in ways sometimes not even you didn't even see it. However, you always been able to see the next chapter. Even though sometimes when life gets really challenged, you know that there's, like you say, one door closes, there's another door that's going to open. But oftentimes we focus so much on the door that is closing because
Mhm.
we are so attached to it, right? That we not able to pay attention to the door. That if we knock into it, sometimes we just twist it. Look at that. Oh, but I don't see anything. I can see light. That's okay. You can go in there. What's there? I don't know. Go and figure it out. This one, you already know what it feels this. But look at this. This it can be this shiny light. You don't know what it is, but go and figure it out. And I think for you, that's entrepreneurship itself. That's what I say. You kind of start. You have this within your heart and soul. Entrepreneurship, you're able to see even behind the lines. So yeah, like behind the lines, though, you're able to read in between the lines what's happening, and that's been a very magical practices that you've been adding to your life with gratitude, mindfulness, meditation. What has been for you the yeah, in a way, what has been for you the feelings of sharing this new passion to the world? What has been the experience like?
I think that's a really deep question. Probably something I should contemplate, take some time to contemplate, because it probably has its roots in childhood, right? Um, it's that feeling of wanting to be of service, you know? But I think that in my adulthood, what I've learned is it's not just service for others, but it's service for myself. So when I did have the restaurant, I was working a lot, and I did go experience burnout. I did have, it did manifest itself physically. I had severe health issues. So it was when I decided to start this new business, or to pivot into teaching meditation and coaching, that I was very conscientious that it was not just about serving others, but it was also about serving myself, which meant taking care of myself, and making sure I was doing whatever was in my power to prevent any sort of burnout whatsoever. Um, so I don't know if I can really answer that question at this point in time where that came from, but I feel like, yeah, there's something in my heart that just loves, and maybe it's I'm a recovering people pleaser. I'm working, still a work in progress on that. Maybe it stems from that it felt maybe uncomfortable to only serve myself and look at what I needed, but then, okay, but how can I share this with others? I don't know. Maybe there's some,
Yeah. No,
deeper issue going on there, but possible.
abs- yeah, absolutely. I really think that you answer it beautiful because you going back to the childhood and just back to service. However, you understand that you cannot only take care you can only take care of others when you take care of yourself. We hear it
Exactly.
all like, oh, you got to take care of others. You got to, oh, you got to serve. And we focus so much on service that we forget ourselves, right? I'm pretty sure, not, I wasn't there, but I'm pretty sure when you were having your restaurant, you always taking care of the customer, right? You always taking care of that customer. Yet you weren't able to take care of yourself. You mentioned you experienced burnout, you experienced all this uh, type of feelings, pressure, in a way, maybe depression, just because all the things that comes in with it, not just having a restaurant, not just being an entrepreneur, but being a mom, taking care for your family, providing for your family, that type of pressure. I really want to, I really want to thank you because you've been so generous by sharing the ins and outs that not many people is willing to share. And building a business, it's not easy. And everybody thinks it's just about just finding your passion, create some purpose and things like that. But you find that you had to go even, you had to go more deeper than that in order for you to continue to create. How, yeah, how did you figure out that I want to pivot, yet I want to serve and I want to continue this other passion that I have, but now I'm gonna go in taking care of myself first so I can continue serve others without feeling overwhelmed.
Um, Honestly, the universe gave me no choice. I, physically, like the universe was like, okay, you're not going to get this lesson until we like smack you in the face. I was dealing with a significant health issue. I had severe
Mhm.
ulcerative colitis, which I battled for 8 years. And to the point where there were times where I thought I wasn't going to make it. I couldn't leave the house. Um, and so yeah, it was if I have this dream, if I have something that I want to do so strongly, so passionately, I have to take care of myself, and it was, yeah, it was that strong where it was like I was given no choice. If I want
Yeah,
to do this, then I need to also take care of myself. Yeah.
I'm glad you did that, and thank you for sharing. Now, what would you say to the people that feel the call to serve others, but in your situation, you mentioned you have no choice. I didn't have any other choice. Me, I can relate because event that happened to me too. That I'm like,
Hmm.
I had no choice. People is like, how do you lose all the weight and everything? I'm like, I had no choice. If I didn't do it, like I was gonna die. Like I have no
Yeah.
choice. So for me, it's not. But for you, from your own personal experience, what would be some tips that you can share to those people that just feel like I just gotta serve, and then this particular mindset that just serving it's very ski. At the same time, you still had to take care of yourself, but they're not able to even recognize it yet. That's the part. That's the interesting part of it.
That's a beautiful question because this is where mindfulness comes into play, right? It's listening, and I'm sure you tell your clients this too, listening to your body. Your body has so much wisdom, right? Your body is going to let you know, is this something you can handle or not? But the problem is most of us aren't tuning into our body. We're not being mindful with what's going on. So, or we think we can push through it, and we keep putting things off the next day, the next day, the next day until sometimes it is too late. So if there was like one very basic thing, tip I could give, it would be to tune into your body. And then when you can, once you do start becoming more self-aware, tune into that internal dialogue, tune into those thoughts, tune into those limiting beliefs, tune into, the record that keeps playing in the back of your mind. You think it's your voice, but it's really not even your voice. It's something that you picked up in childhood, right? These bullshit beliefs that we have. So, yeah, yeah. Start with tuning into your body and then take it the next step further and then start tuning into the mind.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned all those limiting beliefs because there are in cognitive therapy it's called distortions, which is cognitive distortions, what is just like like you mentioned, just limiting beliefs. Those are things that you get picked up as a kid, but now they continue to be with you. There are certain things that I continue to be that is still I want them to be part of me, but there's some that yeah, I don't think that's serving me anymore. Right?
Mm-hmm.
You take it to the next level by go back to their body, which is true. So a lot of people feel that not that many people understands or knows where they holding the stress. That's something that for me is key. Like, where are you holding your stress? You holding your neck, you
Mm-hmm.
holding the stomach, you holding the core, you holding the hips, you holding the lower back. People think it's like, oh, my back hurts. I just bent over. That's not the case. That can be part of it.
Yeah.
However, there's something else that you only know what you're going through. I don't have to tell you, it's called you, anything like that. But the other thing is you mentioned is like become aware of your thoughts. First, pay attention to your body, but then becoming aware of your thoughts and start getting on this rabbit hole, what I call like getting into the rabbit hole and see what is taking you, where sometimes it's going to take you to places that are not very pleasant. Sometimes it can
Mm-hmm.
take you. You bring meditation, you bring mindfulness once again. But I want to talk about now about detachment because you are detachment to the things that no longer serve you.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just external but internal. That to me, that's the greatest detachment. Not just detachment from the external part, but detachment from the internal part. The universe throws at you several things that you have no choice to detach from, several things that you're like, is either you change it or you won't be able to learn the lesson.
Mm-hmm.
How are you practicing internal detachment?
So when I think of detachment, I think of letting go. And I think that at this phase in my life, having two adult children, this has been the predominant lesson that I keep having to learn over and over again is how do you let go, especially as when it comes to being a mom. Once your kids have grown and they're living their own lives, it's our innate nature as moms. We want to still be, we want to be needed. We still want to be needed as moms, and we forget that when we're not needed, that's actually when we've done our job, right? As a mom, we want our kids to be independent. We want them to lead their own lives. But still, there's that, yes, there's that attachment that's there. And so when I think of letting go, gosh, it happens in layers, honestly. It's not like, boom, you think about it, I want to detach, I want to let go, and it's gone. It really does happen in layers. And just like, it's baby steps. It's each time life throws a challenge at you, what is my lesson? And these days, most of the time, it's to let go, to let go, to let go, and it just keeps happening in layers. I think
Yeah,
that people, yeah, I think again with social media, people get this impression that like it's so simple and it's so easy and yeah, boom, it's magic or whatever. It's woo woo. We just let go, we just detach and we move
yeah,
on. And it's not. It's really about bringing in that self compassion, also, right? That we're human. And maybe I can let go today, but I can't let go tomorrow or yesterday or whatever. And just to take
yeah.
each thing moment by moment.
Yeah. That is so beautiful, though. Give yourself permission and give yourself some grace
Hmm.
And I really love the fact that you keep mentioning, maybe not today, but maybe it's tomorrow. Or maybe today is not that good, but maybe tomorrow. And it's just going back to it and just looking at every situation with a different perspective. And it's so beautiful that you keep bringing that up. I know that you haven't even put it in that way, but the way you keep bringing it, I'm like, wow, that's just like zooming out from that bird's eye view, looking at every situation, every day, every moment from a different perspective. How can you? And I can tell that that's called positive psychology because you mentioned your study. I'm like, that's
Hmm.
the positive psychology elements, the key elements that they come in positive psychology. Obviously, I studied clinical psychology, positive psychology, and general psychology. There's several elements, every single one of them has that I'm like, I continue to remind myself. I want to go back to the detachment part because to me, the way I put myself, like I said, in difficult situations, and I practice like the most unique way that I was able to do, like moving here to my daughter when I really had to let go of several things. But one of the key things for me was how how will that feel if I let go of anything and everything, and I can just start something new. What do I really need in order for me to just move, let go, still feel gratitude and grateful for all the experience that I have in one particular place, but then moving on into the other place, you have experienced that yourself, but especially the in throughout your whole entire journey. But for me, when I practiced that particular detachment, it was one of the most beautiful experience that I truly really grateful. It really shows me the power of gratitude once again, but it showed me the power of how attached was to certain things that unconsciously I was attached to it just by beliefs that I have as a kid. And just because I detach of those beliefs doesn't mean that I don't love them or they didn't
Hmm.
serve me. I just made the decision that I want to do something different. Why does it have to be this way? Why cannot be the other way? And I think for me, it was just making the decision. Why does it always has to be one way? You mentioned social media. We go on social media. It has to be this way. Let go, let go, let go. I'm like, how much let go did I have to like I had to do? Why you had to write forgiveness letters. I never gonna end forgiveness letters. So sometimes it's just like when I understood that sometimes it's not about forgiveness, it's about you understanding that what you had at the moment, that's all you have. Now you know better, you can do better, you're moving forward. For me, it's like, hold on one second. Now took a whole entire weight off, right? So there's certain parts that I do relate with you, but I really take from this whole entire conversation is just like the fact that you continue to look at your life and the way you're living it right now on a daily basis and having that awareness and that whole entire gratitude practice, I really is really beautiful to witness. And I just want to say that congratulations. It's amazing. I'm really glad that you're able to share it with us because for me has been very, it's hard to put into words because you bring in peace to certain parts that I'm like, I need to find somebody that I can relate to that particular level. And you start bringing that peace, and I'm like, wow, that's like that's what I call higher energy to me. So, I just want to thank you. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for saying all of that. And it's so amazing, right? We've gone through sort of parallel journeys, you know, you moving to another state to be closer to your daughter, and around the same time I also moved to another state. And mine was actually I moved away. It wasn't because of this, but I moved away from my son, my 28-year-old son who's also autistic. And and yes, we had to detach. We had to detach from things that we loved, and yet at the same time, it's having that faith and knowing. that this is what our next move needed to be. So yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty cool that we've had those parallel
It
journeys.
is it is crazy how the universe works. Sometimes, we went through the pandemic. Yeah, here again there's another life transition. If we just continue to this life transition since before before we finish this conversation, it's been so beautiful to talk to you and hear a little more about your story. But more than anything, sharing a little more of the things that has worked for you and you know how powerful, but you've been practicing it for quite some time. And that's something that I want to emphasize to the audience because oftentimes we
Mhm.
just want to try here for a month and then I want to do something different. That work, we don't continue to do the things that work. We're just trying to do something new. But I wanna finish like if you can share a message to all these people that are going through life transition, what would be the message from you to them?
I think my message would be to get support, right? I can, it would be easy for me to say, oh, do this breathing technique or do this meditation to give you tips and tools. But honestly, I think the deeper message would be to get support because these tools are all beautiful, they're all great. There's no substitute for being able to talk to somebody, whether it's talking to a therapist, whether it's talking to a coach, whether it's talking to friends, loved ones. Know that when you're going through that transition, you're definitely not alone. Yes, everybody's experience is unique, right, in its own way, but we all have more in common than we realize. And so I think that would be my number one tip is don't feel afraid to ask for help. Yeah, and that's something which I tell myself also. I have to remind myself of.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is that is very powerful, and I think if we just put them in like to close it up, it's just like look for the support, continue to practice mindfulness, continue to practice all those tools, tips that you have shared, but continue to get to know yourself, continue to inquire in, because no one else will know yourself better than yourself. And it's just been truly amazing to have you here in the podcast. Nisha, welcome to the show. Welcome back
Thank
to the
you.
show. This has been really amazing, though. It's been overdue to have you here in the podcast, and I'm so glad that we were able to make it happen. But before I let you go, and before I finish this podcast, is there anything that I haven't mentioned or I haven't given you the opportunity to share with us that you like to share?
No, I just want to say thank you, Omar. We've known each other for 5 years, right? Time
Yeah,
has flown
it's
by. We've known each
5 years.
other for 5 years, and you've always been so supportive and so generous, and it's been amazing to know you and to see the work that you've done. And yes, thank you for inviting me today. And yeah, this has been so much fun. I feel like we could just talk for hours. Could keep going.
No, no, of course, no, and definitely there's gonna be a another opportunity for you to have you here on the podcast because to me there's you have so much wisdom and you have so many tools that you not only able to share but more than anything you practice them, and that's something that me personally I want to make sure that every guest when they come not only sharing the tools but I want to make sure that they have practiced them. The reason why is because it's crucial for me just to make the understand how powerful it is if you just practice, and I want to see the results. The people that wants to watch this podcast want to see them like this is the result of what can be achievable. At the same time, I want to tell a little about your story to understand it's a process. So be patient with yourself, continue to love yourself, and just don't forget to just listen and, like you mentioned, look for support. Whether it's a therapist, whether it's a coach, a mentor, consultant, Doesn't matter. Look for those around you that will support you. I'm really glad that you and all the group that when we get together, we're able to support each other, and that's something that me personally, I'm always looking forward to get together because I'm like, I just it's crucial for me. It's part of me now, and I'm pretty sure you can relate because you're the one that's always like behind us, like guys, got to get together, guys, got to get together. I'm like, yes, we like that. So this has been really fascinating, Nisha. Thank you so much for being here on the podcast, though.
Thank you. Thank you, Omar. And thanks to everybody that watches this. Yeah.